This program is brought to you by thepodcastfactory.com.
Ben Settle, super practical.
I'm not telling people to have a mistress. I'm teaching you, learn the lesson from the people who have a mistress, because there's many business lessons that apply.
Pious.
There's a part in the book of Revelation where Jesus says, I want you either hot or cold. I'm spewing lukewarm churches out. And I think it's a good way to look at your list.
Romantic to his very core.
Once in a while, I'll give my girl a present, like a Snickers bar or something.
And totes tender.
If someone asks you to walk on eggshells, smash the eggshells and let the chips fall wherever they may.
Adored by feminists everywhere.
It takes a strong woman to admit when she's wrong.
Not a judgmental bone in his entire body.
I look at all the free information people give just on Facebook and I go, what a bunch of time hose.
Has a PhD in armchair philosophy.
In the land of dumbasses, the smartass is king.
You'll never meet a more sensitive guy.
If you really care about people, you shame the hell out of them. This is Ben Settle, the bensettle.com podcast. And so we're going to do another Email Players Rules episode.
Woo!
This will be the start of the next volume 2. So one day I'll do a volume 2. I have a volume 1 of Email Players. It's going to be a book, that you can buy all the transcripts of the first ones I've done in one book. And this will be the start of volume 2. So not that this really matters to anyone at this moment, but I'd like to give people a little heads up. So Email Players Rule. First of all, let me back up a little bit here, Jonathan. I don't want to make the mistakes you've been making lately by getting ahead of myself. Okay? I don't want your evil to rub off on me. I got enough evil. But the idea for Email Players Rules, for anyone who's not heard this before, is I got it from this guy, Dante Nero, of the Beige Phillips Show, which is kind of like a show about how to get your balls back for guys. And I believe that's a paid podcast now, Jonathan. Don't quote me on that, but I think they made it a paid one. And it's basically this, he's a comedian. The guy's like a comedian, and he's done all this stuff in his life. Kind of a crude show, I will admit. A little bit too much for some people, but the wisdom in the show is very good as far as for guys to get their balls back. Absolutely. And he did these things that he called Beige Phillip rules. And they're like maxims and all that goes by when it comes to that stuff. So I thought, why don't I swipe that for my show, for email, and I'll call them Email Players Rules. Very unoriginal on my part, Jonathan. Notice that I give credit where credit's due in these things.
Very rare.
There are some people out there, very rare. Very rare, but I want to give them credit. It's really, to me, it's a good idea. So that's what the Email Players Rules are my maxims and rules and principles I adhere to for life and business, mostly business. Some of the stuff I have made up, some of the stuff I have not. Some of these ideas I've gotten from others, and I try to, as long as I can remember who I got it from, I will give them all the credit. And it doesn't really matter who gets the credit. These are just good things to live by, in my opinion. If you want to prosper and have some peace of mind and all that, this is a good way to start. So we've done 140. We're going to start with a Email Players Rule 141, Jonathan, unless you have something you want to add.
I can't wait.
Okay, so you're on the edge of your seat. You cannot wait till I start this. Okay, so the first one, if you can't outlaw guns, then just outlaw lead. I heard this when I took my concealed carry class. I didn't hear it exactly put this way, but he was telling us about how in California they didn't outlaw guns, but they've made it so they're outlaw or they're in process of outlawing lead bullets. Now, if anyone knows anything about firearms, that there's a reason why lead is the preferred metal for bullets. So instead now you have people making these brass bullets that have absolutely zero accuracy. They fly all over the place, probably more likely to accidentally shoot someone as a result. And, but they couldn't outlaw guns for some reason. So they just said, we're going to outlaw lead. And I thought, well, that's an interesting thing. I don't know how to apply this to business, Jonathan, top of my head, but it's something to think about. Sometimes you're just put in that situation where you can't get what you want, but maybe there's a way around it. And that's the only lesson I can get with that. I normally don't like anti-gun propaganda, but I have to admit California is pretty clever on that. And so be it. So if you can't outlaw guns, just outlaw the lead. And that solves the problem. And you see a lot of that kind of stuff go on in the legal world and shenanigans and all that. Well, why not apply it to your business somehow? I don't know how you can do it, but I'm sure you can. And there you go. Some of these things are just for deep thinking and not necessarily going to give you immediate answers to any problems. All right? I'm not a miracle worker, Jonathan.
Come on, Ben.
I'm not Miracle Max. Okay, I'm not going to, if you're dead, I can't give you a chocolate covered acorn and you'll wake up like in The Princess Bride. It just doesn't work that way. So email players rule number 142. And I heard this from Dan Kennedy over and over and over when I used to read his newsletters and stuff. Don't make your crisis my crisis. Now, how do you apply this to your business? Well, this is very easily applied to business, especially if you do client work. Now, I don't do client work, so this doesn't apply to me as much as it would to someone who does coaching or freelance copywriting or something. Or if you're like Jonathan, you happen to deal with a bunch of egotistical podcasters such as myself, demanding things of you all the time at the last minute, just at our convenience and not yours.
You're the worst.
Like if you're on a date with if you're on a date with Cupcake, I don't want to hear about that. I just want my problem solved. Okay, that would be me. Let's put it this way: if you're on a date with Cupcake and you guys have not had a night out by yourselves for a long time, and you just want to have the time, the child is with the babysitter and all that, and you just want to enjoy the night, right? You've been working hard, you're exhausted, and you need this night out with Cupcake. And then I come along and I'm emailing you, Snapchatting you, calling you. I send, I'm trying to get your attention all night. I'm sending someone with a telegram to get your attention because there was something that needed to be edited out. There was a word I wanted edited out of a upcoming podcast. And it's a stupid word. And maybe I just want to edit out just because I want to have power over you. And this is the way I do it. I make you jump to my commands. That would be me making my crisis your crisis. And we laugh about this stuff, right? But the reality is a lot of people do let their client's crisis become their crisis.
Yeah.
And it happens all the time. And like the way around that is to just establish that you work blue collar hours. And
7 to 3:30.
I don't want
to
even. One of these sales orders I wrote real early on was for a guy named Art Hamill who passed away, but he was an expert at how to buy businesses, specifically like $1 million businesses without using your own money. And I remember when he was talking to Michael Sunoff, because Michael Sunoff were teaming up to sell this product. I remember he goes, he'll buy a business and he'll leave the management in. And the first day he buys it, he goes to the managers and he says, look, I work blue collar hours. If I hear from you after 5 o'clock, you're going to get fired.
Wow.
He literally say that. I'm just going to fire you. If I ever hear from you after 5 o'clock, I'm just going to fire you and replace you. And he did this because he doesn't want to be bothered after 5 o'clock, obviously. But second of all, it forced the managers to become problem solvers. So he's not being yanked in constantly. And it's smart, right? And how many freelance copywriters and coaches and consultants, their client calls, and because that client's worth a significant amount of money, they jump, right? No matter what. They could be on a date or something like that, or just, doing something. They could be at the doctor's and suddenly they're on their phone dealing with this crisis. Like, whoa. Their crisis does not become your crisis. And the more you let their crisis become your crisis, the less they're going to respect you and the more they're going to demand your time at their convenience and not yours. So my advice to everyone is don't let people make your crisis, their crisis, your crisis, and establish blue collar hours. And blue collar hours don't have to be 8 to 5 or 9 to 5, right? Like whatever your hours of working are, that's when you tell them. I won't even check phones or emails beyond that. And you'd be amazed at how much more obedient clients will be.
I want to give you props, bro, because just yesterday, maybe I shouldn't say this. Maybe I should keep this.
Yes,
to
you
myself.
should. It's props for me, man. I want to hear this. Okay.
So yesterday or whenever Rachel sent you a message and you were happy, I don't know when it was, but she turns to me and she says, "Why can't all our clients be like this? This makes me happy." So you're not that demanding. That. You're not that demanding. That's you get what you are supposed to get, but you don't try to do that on us. But I wanted to add one thing that works for people on your team too. It's like people that work for you try to get you involved in their fires. And I'm like, baby, I believe in you. You get it done and leave me out of it.
Absolutely. Because otherwise they're always going to come to you, right?
Yeah.
And they're always going to be coming, tugging at your titty, looking for milk. And you tell Rachel, I am happy to be, or I should say Cupcake.
Yeah, Cupcake.
You tell Cupcake, I am happy that to be her favorite client. And you know what I like about Cupcake?
What?
I get accused of being kind of rude and stuff because I just don't do small talk, right? Like I don't answer people's emails unless they're asking me a question. And, and she doesn't like get mad that I don't respond to her. I love that.
She's used to it, dude. What
she
do you think
get
I give her?
about it. Well, you've trained her well then, I guess I should say. Well, I guess I should give you the props.
That's
proper
right,
training
man.
of wives and see, that's how you train your wife. See, when you train your wife, or even if you're not married, if someone's listening, they're not married. Patrice O'Neill used to talk about this in his Black Phillip show. He's like, he goes, the best thing I want to hear from a guy after a girl and I are done, like they break up, he goes, I want to get a phone call from that guy thanking me for training her so well for him. That was kind of funny. I deserve a thank you from my exes, whoever they are, whoever their boyfriends are. I deserve a call saying, thank you, Ben. Thank you for training them so well. They're just so much better off than these other people that I've been dating and all that. And I know this is because of you. But you know what? I get no thanks, Jonathan. I get no thanks.
They don't appreciate
even
you
if I got
your dad.
Thanks, even if I got one, I'm sure I'd ignore them anyway. But it's the thought that counts. So anyway, let's go on to email players rule number 143. While you're nurturing, I'm selling. Now this obviously isn't a blatant mockery, Jonathan, of the nursing sequences, as you call them, or nurturing sequences, as everyone else does. I will never understand the point of a nurture. I know there'll be people, but so-and-so says, I don't care what so-and-so says, okay? For some reason, people think that direct response marketing doesn't apply to email and the internet, social media, all this stuff, when it does doubly so. I sell in every email. But if you do it right, you're nurturing them at the same time anyway. But I always think back, like Marty Edelstein, right? When he was creating Boardroom Inc., right? And he hired Gene Schwartz for the last $3,500 he had, which back then was probably like $10,000 today or whatever. Last money he had. This is it. If his ad didn't work, he'd be screwed. He didn't go to Gene Schwartz and say, look, we're going to send 4 nurture letters first so that they don't think we're just trying to sell them. We're trying to help them. Like, it just wouldn't even have occurred to any real direct. Like, I see these old school guys probably shaking their heads at these nurture sequences. It doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. Now, I'm sure there are people who will vehemently disagree with this. And as I would always say, it's okay if you disagree with me. I don't mind. It's not against the law for you to be wrong.
And broke.
Okay, we can still be pals. And broke. If you want to be broke, go ahead. But the people who do these nurture, what they do is they'll point to like Evernote and all these big companies. Well, look what they do. Like, I don't know if it's one of these companies takes like 17 emails, Jonathan, before they actually ask for a sale. 17 emails. Now, to me, that makes zero sense whatsoever.
Tuned out.
Like, but then they'll say, but they must have tested this over and over and over. No, they probably never test. Everyone who says they test, most people never test. And second of all, testing emails is a very tricky thing. It's a very tricky. I'm not saying you can't do it or shouldn't be done. It's a very tricky thing because the variables change constantly on your email list and spam filters and all this stuff. So, and devices that people check things on. All this. I think it's just like someone told these companies that you need to nurture and all this because it sounds all nice and fluffy and flowery. The reality is they should be selling in every email. And if someone unsubscribes, good. You just got rid of someone who's clogging up the system. They need to go. And you're left with people who want to buy. And then the sooner you get someone to buy, and this is what I think just escapes people, Jonathan, I guess, the sooner they buy, the sooner you can sell them something else, which is where the real money is. That's the way I look at it. I don't know anyone who uses 17 direct mail letters before they make a sale. Why would it be any different with email? I don't know. But while they're nurturing, Jonathan, you and I are selling. So I guess we should be happy this is going on.
Take that.
And I am. So just like I expect a thank you call from certain guys for training girls properly, I will thank these guys who are nurturing because while they're nurturing, I'm selling to the same people. All right. So email players rule number 144. Claims create objections. So this is an interesting thought. This is something I remember hearing the late, great, most feared negotiator, Jim Camp, say. He's like every time you make a claim, you're creating an objection. And he's like, the great negotiators don't have to deal with objections because they never create them in the first place because they create vision instead. So applying this to like direct marketing, when people just come out the gate swinging with benefits and, I got this, they don't realize without creating a vision first so that people actually want to, now you give them a vision with a problem, so now they want to buy something. You're just creating objection. Now, you can't totally get away with it in copywriting, obviously. You got to give some claims eventually. But this is a big reason why, the copy slacker method I teach, headline, opening sentence, story, bullets, close, The story is what creates the vision first. So when they read the story, now they're ready to look at my claims. And I'm not creating as many objections. Yet if I just came out with just bam, 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 bam claims, I'm going to create objections. That's not necessarily a bad thing. There are many ads you can do. Like I used to have this ad for my Cracker Jack Selling Secrets book. It didn't really have any story. But the bullets I made so curiosity provoking, it didn't matter. But generally speaking, claims do create objections. You can't get around it. You have to make claims. But the when you make the claims is important. And, a lot of amateur copywriters they still don't get it, Jonathan. Doesn't matter what I say, but I'm going to say it anyway. Claims create objections. All right. Email players rule number 145. Opposing force creates vulnerability. So this is something I learned from my Wing Chun Sifu. He talks about this a lot. In Wing Chun, if you oppose force, you are creating a vulnerability. So for example, if a car is coming at you, Jonathan, and you step in the way of it to try to oppose that force, you've just made yourself very vulnerable, have you not?
Yes.
Like you're going to die.
Okay.
If you step to the side and let it go by you, you have no vulnerability. Now that's obviously a very obvious example, but even if you're like in a fight with someone, just exchanging blows, right? Whoever the strongest person is going to win. If you try to oppose that punch coming at you, instead of getting to the side of it and using it against the person throwing it, you've created a huge vulnerability. And in business, I have done this many times, and I've told this story many times, but it doesn't stop me from telling it anymore, Jonathan. I'm going to do it.
Do it.
And that is, and I've done this several times actually, but the more glaring one is when I got this 1-star Amazon review for my Blue Chip Email Secrets book on Amazon. It's basically it's a transcribed interview, right? That's the book. And there's no table of contents. It's not professionally laid out. It's probably full of spelling problems and all that. And this guy's like, this is some of the best email information I've ever gotten, but this is atrocious. He's like, I can't find stuff. It's terrible. And so, of course, I could have opposed that force, right? I could have argued with him and said, oh, you're an idiot and all this. But he was. I mean, it's not like he didn't have a valid, complaint. But instead of writing an email the next day addressing it, which is what I did, I could have opposed that force and tried to argue with it. But I simply agreed with it. I said, he's right. This is this is
garbage.
Like this is like a crappily put together book. There's no question about it. I lazily just put a transcript up, and I even put it in the description, so now nobody makes the complaint. As I said, look, this is a transcribed book. That's a problem. Don't buy it. But instead, I took his objection. I took his complaint, his 1-star review. I told the story the next day. I said, well, he's right. But then I told the story of Gary Halbert's boron letters when I bought that. I bought that when it was a $97 purchase at the time. And, I didn't have a lot of money at the time either to buy it. But I bought it. And it came, there was no cover on this book, Jonathan. There's no cover on the book that I got. And there was a letter explaining it that came with the book saying that, because he was in Florida, and the heat was so hot, I guess, at the fulfillment center that the covers melted.
No kidding.
That's how hot it was. So it has so not only did it have no cover, but if you've ever read the boron letters and how it was, it's in his handwriting. It's sometimes hard to read some of his stuff in there. I mean, there's no table of contents. There's none. It's even more sloppily put together because it was handwritten letters to his son, right? So if you just go by presentation, you say, this is a crappy book. And yet I can tell you that book is tens of thousands, about hundreds of thousands of dollars in sales to me over the years, easily. And I said, that's how, so that's the story I told. And I said, look, if that's how you feel, like if you're more worried about like presentation than actual content, and this guy even said it was some of the best email information, that's not a good customer for me. And he should probably ask for a refund and all that. And I said, if you think this way, talking to the reader, if you think that way, you shouldn't buy anything from me, because that's how a lot of my products are. So the next day, because I did not oppose his force, and I actually agreed with it, and I used it again, to create an email to make it sale. Not only did I get a bunch of sales for that book the next day or that day, but the next day that guy retracted his bad review, and he changed it to a 4-star review. And he's like, look, you're right. It was a really good book, but I still, the format is really sucky. And he's got a point. But he changed it because I did not oppose the force. If I'd argued with him and told him to go to hell or something, he never would have changed it, right? And so that's an example of opposing force creates vulnerability. So don't oppose force. And this goes on everything. If you're going to argue with someone on Flakebook or something, don't oppose their force. Use it. We've talked about this in this podcast before, like agree and amplify and that sort of thing. That's how you don't oppose force. And so it is. So email players rule number 146. IQ does not mean I know. So nice. I'll just say this, Jonathan. And I don't say this to someone with a low IQ. I have an above, from what I understand, it's an above, I'm not a genius or anything, but I have like a slightly above average IQ. So it's not like I'm picking on people with high IQs. I will just say this, and there'll be no more commentary on this rule after this. There's a lot of broke geniuses out there, and I'll just leave it at that. Enough said. Email players rule number 147. You don't have to beat them. You just have to invalidate them. Now, I'm planning this very expensive event that I'm going to have in Bandon this summer. Maybe July or August. I'm not sure yet. And it's going to be, I'm calling it the Email Players Beniversity. It's going to be
Beniversity, love it.
Very deep into email, like stuff I've never taught before, or if I did teach it, there's stuff I do that I have never taught people because I don't want people like using it. I want to be the only one using it. I'm very greedy like that. But I'm going to teach some of this stuff at the Beniversity. And one of them is this. You don't have to beat them. You just have to invalidate them. There's nothing new about invalidating the competition, yet hardly anyone does it, right? If you want to see a perfect example of this, perfect example. And I know that people who hate Donald Trump are going to they're just going to let this go over their head because they can't get out of the space of how much they hate the guy that they can't learn from him. There's so much to learn from this guy. I mean, you're basically getting a free marketing education every time he sends a tweet out that pisses you off. He's giving you a free marketing education. Nice. Like him, hate him, indifferent to him. I didn't vote for the guy, but I will learn all kinds of stuff from this guy. He is a master at invalidating, using mockery, his competition. Like when he would call Hillary Crooked Hillary, right? Or when he calls Elizabeth Warren Pocahontas, right? Like you don't realize it, but what he's doing is he's invalidating them. He's using mockery to invalidate his competition. The Pocahontas thing is so, and we'll see how this plays out, but it's so strong that he's invalidating her before she even runs for president. Like by the time if she decided to run, by the time she runs, people are going to associate her with Pocahontas, and she's not really an Indian. She's white passing and all this. It's like his work is being done years in advance.
No kidding.
Because he's not trying to beat her. He's not even running against her. He's just invalidating her. And I do this in my emails all the time. It's something I am going to teach at the Email Players Beniversity. I will say this about the Email Players Beniversity before we move on, Jonathan. And that is, it's going to be very expensive, at least $10,000. And there's going to be no credit card orders. You're going to have to pay with a check or bank transfer, and no refunds or anything like that. And it's going to be stuff like that I teach, and how you use email to do that. It's going to be an interesting thing. I'm going to limit to like maybe 5 people tops. Hopefully only like 1 or 2 show up, actually. I actually want less people. In fact, if only 1 person showed up, that would be just fine with me. Because it really would, because it would actually be easier to teach 1 person this stuff. But 5 people, I gotta look at everyone's emails and all this. But I'm gonna limit it to 5. It's gonna be $10,000, and so be it. So anyway, those are this time's 7 Email Players rules. Jonathan, is there anything you want to add to this before we sign off?
I do not.
Okay, then. I don't know what we're going to talk about next week, but I'm sure it'll be amusing for somebody out there, if not us. And that's all I got. That's it.
Oh, I love the cliffhanger. Another bensettle.com podcast is in the can. We'll be back with you guys next time.
You've been listening to the bensettle.com podcast. To download yourself a free issue of Ben's prestigious $97 per month Email Players newsletter, which is going to show you 24 ways to write emails people eagerly read, click, and buy from, head on over to www.bensettle.com. Off you go. You know it makes sense.
This is the podcastfactory.com.